It is about 5 after or 6 after 10 o'clock. I'd like to go ahead and begin the webinar. We're going to begin the webinar today. First of all, I'd like to say welcome to everyone to the Global Menstrual Equity webinar, specifically focusing on helping girls stay in school. We're going to be having a great discussion today. We have some amazing panelists, but we're going to go ahead and start the webinar with our safety message. Next slide.
Welcome to our Delta Sigma Theta community event. We are delighted you chose to be with us today. We want you to have a wonderful experience. Please be assured your safety as well as your enjoyment of the event are our utmost concern. Please take a moment, look around, and identify the nearest 2 exits in your current location in the event that it is necessary to evacuate quickly and orderly in case of the need for emergency evacuation. Also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, please remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, and always walk and stand 6 feet apart from others. Please enjoy the event and welcome.
Next slide.
Ground rules. Enjoy today's webinar and feel free to take notes and write down any questions. All questions must be placed in the Q&A section of Zoom. Questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Please complete the survey at the end of the program. Your time, attention, and generous donations are greatly appreciated.
Next slide. Now we'll have meditation by Reverend Sheila Claiborne. Sheila?
Good morning. Our meditation today is We Are One. Ephesians 4:3 tells us to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit. On today, we are united together by a cause that is near and dear to our hearts. When one hurt, we all hurt. When one cry, we all cry. When one suffers, we all suffer. When one laugh, we all laugh. Beloved, we are one in the Spirit. No matter where we are, whether we are in the United States, Africa, or the uttermost parts of the world, nothing can destroy the unity of mankind that God Himself has formed. Let us be intentional and make every effort to keep ourselves united in the Spirit as we stand together today for global menstrual equity. We will be stronger than ever. We won't stop until every girl and every woman get access to what they need. Let us be mindful and careful not to do anything that will damage our unity. Let us be like-minded, having a unity of spirit and in love with the love of Christ in our heart, being on one accord, encouraging one another, always demonstrating compassion and extending grace. Let us stand in unity together and be that visionary, that way maker, that mover and shaker. We are one. Let us commit ourselves to breaking barriers, contributing to the community, and making sure we learn and grow together. There's a song that goes like this: I need you, you need me. We're all part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We are all parts of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. We are one.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Next slide.
Sawubona, Dumelang. Good morning, good afternoon from Johannesburg, South Africa. I am Sharita Stevens, president of the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated. On behalf of my chapter and the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter, I would like to welcome our guests from all over the world to our first ever Global Menstrual Equity webinar, Helping Girls Stay in School. You're here today because something about menstrual equity resonated with you, or keeping our girls in school, something about that topic resonated with you. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. Friends, according to Context News, over 500 million women and girls struggle to manage their periods monthly. 500 million. Have you stopped to think about what menstrual equity truly is? Or how about period poverty? Or the ways in which climate change and our environment have an impact on your period? Have you ever worried about access to clean running water when you get your period? How about having tampons, sanitary napkins, or even worried about having toilet paper? According to Alliance for Period Supplies, there are still 21 states in the US that still tax the sale of period products and consider pads a luxury item. Today, our esteemed panelists will discuss these basic needs for girls and women in US communities, South Africa and Kenya, and the rest of the world. Additionally, we will hear about lack of access to menstrual hygiene products, access to clean running water, and the legislative issues of scrapping the tax or VAT on menstrual products. We hope that you leave this webinar with an understanding of a little bit more about what menstrual equity is and how to advocate for our communities of girls and women all around the world. At this point, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Jocelyn Gaynors. Dr. Gaynors currently serves as the Executive Director of the Family Recovery Program Incorporated, the only family treatment court in Baltimore, Maryland. She's also the president and CEO of 1209 Rose LLC, a housing management firm. In April of 2018, the Daily Record selected Dr. Gaynors as one of Maryland's top 100 women. Most recently, she was selected through the Child Welfare League of America's 100th anniversary as one of 100 awardees for the Champion for Children Award. Dr. Gaynors holds a doctoral degree in education from the Morgan State University. Through her work, she has empowered thousands of individuals to believe in themselves and their capacity to change and become self-reliant. We look forward to a robust discussion, and I will now hand it over to Dr. Gaynors.
Thank you so much, Sharita, for that kind introduction. I'm excited to be with everyone today to discuss this very, very important topic. Please join me in preparing ourselves for this webinar as we hear a message from our Eastern Regional Director, Ms. Rosie Allen Herring.
Greetings to my sorors of the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter and the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm Rosie Allen Herring, your Eastern Regional Director. Sorors and guests, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar where we're discussing something that is so critical to the young women in our lives in both our countries. Global menstrual equity, or should I say inequity, is something that we believe certainly deserves the attention that it will get tonight, but also your thought leadership around how we can bring a thoughtful solution to this very tough problem. I want to salute the leadership of both chapters, SOAR Sharita Stevens of the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter and SOAR Cynthia Horton from the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter for your awesome leadership along with your entire chapters of bringing this issue to light. I do want to encourage everyone attending to support the fundraising effort behind this webinar, that of the I Can Fly School in Kenya, founded by and run by our own soror, Shay Gibbons. Soror's menstrual equity is something that is indeed an issue of our times. We need your help. We need your thought leadership. We need your support to move this issue forward so that many of our young women, our young girls, have the opportunity to grow up and become whoever it is that they seek or want to be. Delta Sigma Theta is at the forefront of bringing social issues to light, and this is like no other. Thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you for what you do. Hats off to both the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter and the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter for your partnership and coming together as we do indeed seek to serve our global communities. Thank you, sorors, and enjoy the remainder of the webinar.
We thank SOAR. We thank Ms. Rosie Allen Herring for that message. We'll now move on to our poll questions. Taisha?
Thank you, Dr. Game. So good morning and good afternoon to SOAR's guests and visitors. Again, my name is Taisha Chavis, and I'm a proud member of the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I have the distinct pleasure of facilitating our poll today. Before we jump into the robust discussion and information our panelists have in store, we would love to get a sense of how much you're aware of the challenges around menstrual equity. So we have just a few short questions we would like for you to complete with us today. And afterwards, we'll reveal the responses. And so right now, you'll see the poll questions on your screen. And so if you could, please just take a minute, and if you needed, maybe a minute and 30 seconds to complete the poll.
As we're completing the poll, let's just keep in mind one of the things that was presented earlier, and that is that 500 women are impacted by this challenge. So our conversation today will enlighten all of us. All right, next slide. All right, Taisha, you're going to review the results of the slide of the poll questions with the group?
Yes, thank you so much. So our first question here, I have heard the term period poverty before. About 57% of us have said yes, and 43% have said no. The same question applying to menstrual equity, about 68% of us are more familiar with the term menstrual equity. The third question, I know how to advocate for menstrual equity. And so this is where we see a little variance in responses. And so the majority of us, 39%, are leaning towards neutral and or disagree. And so hopefully within the next couple of minutes as we proceed through our robust panel discussion, we'll illuminate how to advocate for menstrual equity. And so we'll do another poll following our panel discussion. Thank you again, and turning it back over to Dr. Gators.
Thank you, Taisha. I appreciate that. All right, so we have some work to do. We have some education to make happen today. We're going to move to the next slide. I'm going to do a quick introduction of Ms. Carol McLaurin. Carol McLaurin is chair of the International Awareness and Involvement Subcommittee, National Program Planning and Development Committee of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She is a Diamond Life member with current chapter affiliation at Dallas Alumnae Chapter, Dallas, Texas. Carol's professional career of more than 3 decades was spent through retirement with Procter & Gamble. Thank you for being here today, Ms. McLaurin.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the introduction. I was asked today to give a brief overview of our 7 projects that are approved by our national headquarters that we service on an annual basis. Our focus is on education and physical and mental health to support women and girls in marginalized and under-resourced communities to educational advancement and equal rights. As the subjects that have been discussed previously and some of the statements have been made, is to support these girls so that they don't have the high rate of absenteeism due to lack of hygiene and feminine care products. I'll give you a brief overview on the projects that we cover. I'll start out with Haiti, which we all know is going through an extreme period of civil unrest during these unprecedented times and excruciating living conditions. But we have a school, an elementary school in Charette, Haiti, with 300 students that are currently enrolled, attending school, as Delta provides funds to support the education and food for the children during these times. And as we talk about Southern Africa, we have projects in South Africa as well as Eswatini. We have the Adelaide Tambo School for children who are physically challenged. We have currently 400 children that attend that school in Soweto. We also have training and resources for early education known as TREE, where this organization focuses and training for staff, practitioners, mothers to educate and prepare what we had called at one point here in America, preschool, to prepare these children for pre-K, focusing on children, infant to 4 years old in Durban, South Africa. And the third project that we have is the Delta House, Vashti Village in Eswatini, Africa. We have 26 children that are currently at the orphanage, 16 girls and 10 boys. These children are orphans of AIDS victims. During this, I say this because it currently exists, the HIV/AIDS pandemic, as well as other children who come to the village who are homeless due to uncompromised living conditions. And now we'll go to Kenya. Mary Help of the Sick Mission Hospital, which we've serviced for over more than 50 plus years, servicing more than 200 women daily. And as we service these women, we focus on the maternity ward to include pre and postnatal care, accepting patients with and without money. They do not turn anyone away. And then we have the MUNDU Mbingo Boys Secondary Boarding School, where there's 600 boys enrolled in Machakos, Kenya, and we provide clean water, water tanks, books and supplies and scholarships for these young men. And our seventh project is I Can Fly High Girls Boarding School in Machakos, Kenya also. There are 200 girls who are part and enrolled at the boarding school and the high school level. And then we have a rescue mission with 100 girls that are girls who have come from marginalized and under-resourced communities, as well as runaways, FGM, fetal genital mutilation, childhood brides, etc., to name a few. So as you can see, Delta does support these platforms that we're going to talk about today, and it is a part of our daily projects. And as I talk about the I Can Fly High Shea Given School, which opened in 2008 on a rock that has now flourished to support those girls who are having these problems that we're talking about today. It cost over $500,000 a year. You talk about $500,000 million a year to run that particular organization with those girls. And it was mentioned earlier, Sarah Stevens mentioned that we have over 500 million girls that are struggling with lack of education, lack of feminine hygiene products. And we're going to talk about that today. I am honored and privileged to be a part of your panelists as we talk about this, as we continue to support educational advancement to reduce the absentee days missed out of school due to lack of hygiene education and products. I thank you. And I also just want to reiterate, we did visit Africa in May of 2023 of this year. And as a matter of fact, we will be joining Southern Africa Alumnae chapter next week in November, led by our international president, Elsie Cook Holmes. And we will be taking a delegation to tour these projects. And our tours are to inspect what we expect so we can continue to provide the needs that are necessary. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carol McLaurin. Next slide. Now we're going to talk a little bit about our panelists. We have some amazing panelists for you today. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Lisa Maxwell. Lisa Maxwell is involved with the Grassroots Community Foundation. It is a training organization with an emphasis on public health and social action. They support, develop, and tailor wellness programs for women and girls, particularly those in economic distress. Additionally, they advocate for policies and practices that reduce racial and gender disparities and foster equity. As a board member, Ms. Maxwell is equally amazing in her professional career as a marketer with expertise in building bonds through innovative campaigns that deliver sustainable growth. We're going to welcome Ms. Maxwell to our panel. Next on our panel, we'll be having Ms. Amina Anekwe. Ms. Amina Anekwe is a sophomore at New York University. She's also a youth ambassador of Grassroots Community Foundation, where she focuses all of her efforts on ending period poverty. She recently spent time in Ghana in honor of the International Day of the Girl. Again, join me in welcoming Ms. Anekwe to the panel. And finally, joining our panel, we will have Ms. Stephanie Smith. Delegate Smith was reelected to serve her second term in the Maryland House of Delegates, where she represents Baltimore City's 45th State Legislative District. Ms. Smith has successfully passed over 24 laws addressing public safety, economic justice, and education. Stephanie served as the primary sponsor of the Crown Act, which prohibits discrimination on natural and protective styles. Stephanie has served as host of many Baltimore nonprofit boards, and she currently serves on the board for the Maryland School for the Blind. We welcome Delegate Smith. Panelists, thank you for the wealth of information that you're about to share. We're excited to hear from each of you. Next slide. We're actually going to stop that demonstration right now.
I'm in the 11th grade.
Thank you. We're going to move back to Ms. Maxwell. Thank you so very much. We'll see that video shortly after the panelists speak.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Maxwell, Vice President of Marketing at MasterCard. And as Jocelyn said, I'm a board member of Grassroots Community Foundation. And on top of that, I lead the Grassroots Global Menstrual Equity Council. I want to say a huge thank you to the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter and the Southern African Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for inviting my daughter Amina and I to this important conversation. Our mission at Grassroots Community Foundation, where community is our middle name, is to create a world where all girls grow up to be healthy women. Why girls? Because a girl will return 90 cents of every dollar she earns in her community, compared to a boy who will return only 35 cents of every dollar. So investing in a girl literally is a good return on investment. I got involved with Grassroots because as I grew in my career, I saw fewer women were in boardrooms with me and even fewer were in the C-suite. And in over a decade of working with Grassroots, I hypothesized that the root of the problem for women is the differential treatment that begins for us the day we start our period. On that day, in that hour, at that minute, in that very second, we walk into a silent world where we bear more cost, more physical and emotional pain, more risk of sexual violence, more shame, and more critique by adults than our male counterparts. And we learn the art of period gymnastics, which includes never speaking of this natural healthy process, always concealing any indication that we're experiencing it, and supplying our own essentials, even if our families can't afford them. While men go into bathrooms and have every accommodation, us as women struggle silently for at least 1 week a month, sometimes longer. It was a slow eureka for me to realize the issue of few women in the boardroom and the unevenness created by menstrual inequity were connected. This invisible issue is pushing girls around the world out of school. The average girl in the US starts her period at 9 years old. That's about the 3rd grade. And in other countries, it averages 12 years old, which is the 6th grade. And girls bear an invisible cost and are punished for this life-giving and natural process. It costs $400 US per year and a cumulative $10,000 US per year over a woman's lifetime for a period. 1 in every 10 girls, I will repeat, 1 in every 10 girls around the world will miss school because she cannot afford her period. That's what period poverty is. This creates uneven education for girls and underpins why many don't complete school in every country, including in the United States of America. Consider the cumulative effect of missing days of school beginning in the 3rd grade. Since 2019, I've had a unique opportunity to see these issues up close around the world. Amina and I have had the honor of spending quality time with schoolgirls in the United States, Jamaica, Ghana, and most recently, we had the honor of visiting I Can Fly School in Kenya. What we've learned through each of these experiences is that girls around the world face the same issues. We are all constrained by cultural stigma about periods, and periods demand attention to every aspect of our neighborhood's infrastructure. But because many of these systems and buildings were built with men in mind, they never considered the needs of women. Think about it. A period demands clean drinking water to stay hydrated, privacy, such as a bathroom with a stall, running water for hygiene purposes, a garbage bin, and a good waste disposal system, and the freedom to visit that facility at least every 2 hours to stay healthy. Which school building or even which workplace affords us this type of infrastructure? In the United States, where many of us are located, we might be able to count off many of these privileges, but this is not true for our inner cities, much less rural areas around the world. So that's why we formed the Grassroots Community Foundation Global Menstrual Equity Council this year. The council envisions a world where menstrual equity is achieved. Menstrual equity means that all individuals have equal access to health education and menstrual products, and can live healthy, dignified lives. We seek to help 1, increase health literacy, 2, provide access to menstrual products, and 3, to advocate for policies. I want to extend my gratitude to each of the 5 founding member countries and organizations for their dedication. In the United States, I want to thank Catherine Connor of West Orange High School and our girl ambassador, Amina Nekwe. In Kenya and South Africa, your very own Sharita Stevens of the Southern African Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. In Ghana, Kathy Ikar of the Rotary Club of Accra Airport City. And in Jamaica, Shelly Ann Weeks, who is the founder of Her Flow Foundation. To close, we can help keep girls in school by championing menstrual equity. Period supplies can be available as toilet paper. Boys and girls should understand all aspects of periods so we eliminate shame, and policies can be put in place that put girl at the center. Boys must learn because many of them end up becoming policymakers who decide on infrastructure. We would encourage the members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, who's already doing some amazing work, to consider continuing advocating for policies that increase education and access. And of course, to get involved and learn more, go to our website at grassrootscommunityfoundation.org and sign up for our newsletter to learn more about our ongoing activities. Thank you.
Wow, that was a wealth of information. Thank you so much, Ms. Lisa Maxwell.
My pleasure.
I never even heard the term period gymnastics before. So you've added some new words to my vocabulary.
We've been creating those words, so but you can use it.
That's good stuff. Thanks again. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to move on to our second panelist. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amina Patricia Nekwe. I am currently a sophomore at NYU studying history and English, and I am proud and honored to be the youth ambassador for menstrual equity with Grassroots Community Foundation. As my mom has eloquently said, Grassroots Community Foundation has a mission for all girls to grow up to be healthy women. I've been lucky to be a part of Grassroots since I was 5 years old. Like many of you, nearly 50% of you, I did not know about period poverty until I participated in a service trip to Jamaica in April of 2019. When we went to Jamaica, we got to meet Shelly Ann Weeks. You might remember this name from the Menstrual Equity Council, who is founder of Her Flow Foundation. She taught me that period poverty is the lack of access to menstrual supplies due to financial constraints. She also said, globally, 1 in 4 girls will miss up to 1 week of school per month because they do not have the resources to buy sanitary napkins. Now that hit me really deeply because I was a student, and 1 in 4 girls meant many of my peers. It was ridiculous to me because I felt that period supplies should be as accessible as toilet paper. And yet girls were not only losing access to them, they were forced to miss school because of that. That deeply frustrated me. It also frustrated me that girls would have to undergo period gymnastics, where they would bring a pad or a tampon or other menstrual essentials to the bathroom. I realized that I myself was a participator of period gymnastics, and it started to dishearten me. And then I remembered the first time I got introduced to my period was when I was in elementary school. There were the boys and the girls, and we were told to go into 2 separate classrooms. And I remember the boys had a prolific speech about puberty, and the girls were taught about their periods. We were given a little panty liner, and the first thing the teacher told us to do was to immediately put the panty liner in our bag so that none of the boys would be able to see what we had just talked about. From that moment, I was taught that my period was something to be ashamed of. I was taught that I had to go under period gymnastics to hide my pads and tampons to be professional or responsible. But that's not the truth. Menstruation is a natural, healthy process that deserves to be recognized as such. So after my trip to Jamaica, where we were introduced to this very important initiative, I was appointed as the youth ambassador. And then in October 2019, I traveled with Grassroots to Ghana to deliver speeches and donate menstrual essentials with the Rotary Club of Accra Airport City to girls attending 3 rural schools. After that trip, I decided to take an active role at my own town, West Orange, to end period shame and increase access to menstrual essentials. In my hometown, nearly 50% of students qualify for free and reduced lunch. Because of that, at the beginning of COVID-19's rise in the United States, our town established a food shelter. In this food shelter, there was food, water, toilet paper, but of course, no menstrual essentials. Because of that, my mom and I advocated for its inclusion to the superintendent and proceeded to donate nearly 20,000 pads to my school district shelter and school lunch program. But that still did not deal with the pervasive stigma around menstruation. So we then co-created Red Dot Day, an annual public health initiative to normalize conversations about periods and end period poverty. In my town, we partnered with the Student Council and successfully engaged most of the student body in 2020 and 2021. Since then, we've collaborated with Rotary Club of Accra Airport City, Her Flow, West Orange, and Newark schools to collect and distribute nearly 50,000 menstrual essentials. But that's still not enough. Only by teaching all students, boys, girls, non-binary students, can we help end the stigma around menstruation. Menstruation is a natural, healthy process that demands cultural and economic recognition and support. And it's time that we start discussing it so we can begin to end it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amina. Wow, you have given us a mouthful. Again, we heard more about period gymnastics, and I just want to congratulate you on your accomplishments. The Red Dot Day that you and your mom created, and just being a great ambassador and in your travels, sharing that information and bringing knowledge to us. Thank you so much for your presentation today. We're going to move on to our next slide, our next guest.
Good morning and good afternoon. Again, my name is Stephanie Smith. I'm a state delegate representing the 45th District in Baltimore City. I want to first say thank you to the organizers for the invitation. And then I also want to salute both the national and the regional, as well as the chapter leadership for prioritize this issue, because quite frankly, particularly in the United States, students of color, women of color are disproportionately impacted by this issue, and not and the advocates do not always represent those that are most deeply impacted. So I'm very honored to hold space with my fellow panelists, a dynamic mother-daughter duo, for the work that they're doing. I also want to lift up that I also serve on the Sister States Committee between Maryland and KwaZulu-Natal Province in South Africa. So also happy to share space with our sisters in South Africa and beyond. One of the things I wanted to lift up is put a very specific Maryland face on this issue. We heard the 500 million women that are and girls that are impacted across the world, but in Maryland, this is something that is being felt in a state that is one of the richest states in the United States. And so there's no community that isn't touched by this, even though we haven't been discussing it. Now, in 2017, Maryland did take some action around period poverty issues by essentially requiring school districts to provide free access to menstruation products for children that were experiencing homelessness. So it was a very discrete population of students that were to be provided these resources. As we know, there are people who are not experiencing homelessness that need this assistance. You heard also very early in this presentation that some states actually have special luxury and other taxes for these products. I'm happy to say that in 2018, the state of Maryland actually exempted tampons, pads, and related products from the sales and use tax. So that is a modest step in the right direction. Moving forward to 2021, there was a call and a great campaign to create more access to these products for all girls in school, in public school. And while every women's and girls' bathroom does not feature free access, at least 2 girls' or women's bathrooms in public schools in Maryland are to provide free access to these products. Now, there's still more work to do. I think we can all squarely hear that this issue of period poverty, it's about human dignity being compromised. It's about economic injustice and inequity. And it also is about, quite frankly, misogyny, issues related to the welfare and the promotion of positive outcomes for women and children. And girls are often dismissed and devalued in ways that we have to aggressively fight against. So when I think about the human dignity piece, we keep hearing about the fact that people are stigmatized by something it's just natural. It's something we all have to do. And I was recently speaking with a pastor in my district that does a lot of outreach to those experiencing homelessness and other transitions in life. And I discussed with him the issue of period poverty and about how sometimes, women and girls may have to resort to using toilet paper and other things like that to try to have some level of comfort in managing their periods. And he paused and he said, I had never considered that. And now it explains why sometimes I don't have as much toilet paper when I'm stocking it as I think I should, because he didn't consider the relationship between the depletion of those resources and people managing and trying to preserve some level of personal comfort and dignity as they navigate this monthly experience. And so it brings me to another part of this conversation. It's about economics, quite frankly, right? We are hearing that low-income women and girls are not only missing school because of the fact that they're facing period poverty, they're also sometimes missing work. So a population that really cannot afford to have diminished access to their wages are sometimes unable to access their wages because of their inability to navigate their periods and have the resources they need to do so. And so anytime we're fighting to ensure that women have access to proper wages, are able to access employment in sectors that have increased earning potential, anytime you're fighting for economic equity for women and girls, you are also addressing period poverty, because at the root is poverty. Another thing I want to mention is that in the state of Maryland, there was a bill that was introduced earlier this year that was going to expand the use of your SNAP benefits that are traditionally nutrition supplemental funds that you can use to buy food to include products that you need to manage your period. And so generally you have to pass a law in order to make certain policy outcomes, particularly if you're dealing with an administration that may not be as particularly interested in addressing that policy matter. But what was really energizing about the hearing is that we had a pledge made by the new Secretary of Human Services for the state of Maryland, a member of the cabinet of the new Governor Wes Moore's administration, that this was something that they're going to work on from a policy perspective, and that we didn't have to pass a law to do it. They want to do it. If we want to help people who are already experiencing economic pressure be able to access the things that they need to live and excel in society, we should look at some of the pathways we already have and see how we can allow products like this to also be eligible uses for other economic benefits people may already be receiving from the government. So I just want to lift up, this is about human dignity. Everyone should be comfortable and stigma-free and able to manage their periods. This is also about economic inequity. People deserve to be paid living wages and be able to afford everything they need and most of what they want. That's my opinion. And lastly, we need to live in a world that is free from misogyny and sexism. And I know that everyone in this webinar is a part of making that happen. So honored to be here, and thank you.
Again, another powerful message. Thank you so much, Delegate Smith. A reminder to everybody, human dignity matters, and we have to all work toward making that happen. So thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and just take a moment. And first, I'd just like to thank all of our panelists for that amazing amount of information. It's a lot to kind of process. But while we're processing it, I would like each of you all to join me as we take a moment to learn a little bit more about the I Can Fly High School that's been talked about a little bit earlier today. Next slide.
My name is Vivian. I'm in the 11th grade at I Can Fly Girls High School. If I could change the world, I would ensure that all nations live in peace. If I could change the world, I would safeguard the rights of women and girls. If I could change the world, I would do away with the barbaric culture of FGM.
If I could change the world, I would eradicate corruption.
If I could change the world, I would cling together with other well-wishers to help the needy.
If I could change the world, I would make sure every child, especially girl child, gets a chance to study.
If I could change the world, I will improve agriculture by training people on better methods of farming.
If I could change the world, I will educate the girls to be female assertive and to fight for their rights in the society.
If I could change the world, I would eradicate early marriages among the women.
We are the Butterfly Girls, and we believe change is inevitable.
All of our stories are unique. We know change is not easy, but it is necessary.
We continue to rise, and yes, we shine, although many people don't value girls' education.
Before I joined I Can Fly High School, I was sure my father would give me away to early marriages.
Before I joined I Can Fly, I wasn't sure if I could continue with my education. This is because in my community, girls' education is not considered important.
Girls are so important to this world because we become pillars of our families and our community too.
The girl child is rising. You can see our light in Kenya and other parts of the world. Change is coming. Join our movement today.
Thanks, guys. If I could change the world, what would I do? Now we're going to hear from an ambassador from the I Can Fly High School, Miss Mary DePash. Mary?
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. So my name is Mary Dapash.
We're ready.
And also a contact person specifically an area in Kenya that is called Narok County. So I'm the contact person there. With the support of I Can Fly High, we go to the communities in Narok. We actually support girls and boys. We go to the schools. Those are the most remote areas. We choose a specific school and then we go to that school. I can fly support with sanitary towels pack. The pack has sanitary towels and some innerwear for girls. And also we bring some soaps for boys. So when we go to a school setup, we actually gather both girls and boys together. We have conversations around menstrual health. We motivate them and we sensitize them on matters, those retrogressive cultural practices that are in my community. I think people have heard of female genital mutilation. There is no equity equity in access to information. If you see the sanitary towels which are sold in Kenya, they're actually expensive. And this has led to girls actually exchanging sex for pads due to poverty. And also there is a lot of lack of information. You meet a girl who is in grade 6, that is a 14-year or a 13-year-old girl. She's not aware that when she will have periods, how to react when she finds out that she has started menstruating. She has no idea that once I have started my menstruation, I can actually get pregnant. So those are the conversations we normally have with them. We actually demonstrate on how they can put a sanitary towel and how to properly dispose it. In Kenya, we don't use tampons, very few use it. The popular ones are the sanitary towels. So we show them the proper way to use them and when to use them, and actually how to utilize the little water that is available to actually be clean. Yeah, and we normally have a lot of feedback and a lot of questions which are asked for the which are asked by the girls and boys. Just as Lisa had said, it is important to also involve the boys because they'll be their sisters keepers, and also in the community or in the society, they'll also be policy makers. So we have started that journey. We are involving them also so that they can even support their sisters. And even when they are big, they are also able to advocate for the same. And also on the knowledge section where the girls still, there's a gap in, because it is not normal for you to talk to your father.
We
So if a
apologize.
girl wants to, maybe she needs support to buy a sanitary towel, it is impossible to just tell your father, Dad, I need a sanitary towel. That will automatically translate to some very sensitive matter like sexuality. So you just have to tell your mother. Sometimes they are poor, they can't afford, and this translates to what I was saying, exchange for exchange sex for pads, and this leads to early pregnancy. And if you get pregnant, definitely you'll drop out of school. So that is the challenges, and I am very glad that I can.
I think Mary is having some technical difficulties. We appreciate her participation. She is all the way in Kenya, and so we know that there are always some Wi-Fi challenges, but I want to thank her for her presentation today. She really brought up a lot of good points, and I think most of us probably didn't know that young girls were exchanging sex for pads. And that's really shocking for me, and I'm glad to hear that she's working on the forefront as an ambassador. All right. Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate your time today. Let's move on to the next slide. Now I'm going to introduce my friend and my sorority sister, Miss Lisa Jefferson, who's going to be presenting any of the questions that have come up today. And I know I have a couple that have come up through my channel. So please, Lisa, join us.
Good afternoon or good morning to everyone. I hope we all now have a little more increased knowledge of the issues of menstrual inequities in the U.S., South Africa, and beyond. And I hope we are encouraged to educate, advocate, and donate to help eradicate period poverty. One of the first questions asked by our guest was, this is an excellent program. Would it be possible for the stats shared by the panelists to be made available? And I'm not sure who can answer that particular question.
I think that would be Lisa Maxwell.
Yes, absolutely. We have some of those stats on our website, grassrootscommunityfoundation.org. I'll be sure to share that link, probably in the Q&A portion, so that you guys can take a look and post. I think this will go live on the Delta Sigma Theta alumni webpages, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And our next question, what careers or educations do the girls at the I Can Fly High School pursue after graduation?
That might be one for Lisa as well.
The I Can Fly, Carol McLaurin,
Carol,
can answer the question, international awareness and involvement. Once the girls have completed high school, there is a new program where we are in the process of bringing those girls to America to try and matriculate toward a college education. Their education ends at I Can Fly High as a high school student that has met the requirements of the Ministry of Education in Machakos, Kenya. So any advancement after that would fall into their interests and scholarships to get advanced learnings.
And Sora McLaurin, I can ask you this next question. What is an average day like at the I Can Fly school?
Gosh, an average day, I wish the Sarah, who is the ambassador, were here to speak for you. They have come a mighty long ways from 2008 on that rock to what they have built today. They now have running water. They have bathrooms and toilets. And we provide donations for them so that they have feminine care products to include the sanitary napkins, which they prefer, and also the education to understand the importance of what they do. They wake up daily, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start their day. They have chores, and then they advance to their classrooms, which are on site, and complete their learnings for the day. And then they retire for the evening with studies for the classes that they're taking, and also dinner. And then they retire so that they can start the next morning at 5 a.m.
Thank you so much, Short McClung. We have another question from one of our guests. Does I Can Fly International host service projects that volunteers can participate in?
Can you repeat that question again? It kind of went out on the end.
Okay, I'm sorry. Does I Can Fly International host service projects that volunteers can participate in?
The I Can Fly High projects that we have through Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, you can work with both chapters that are on this line with us today, the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumnae chapter and Southern Africa Alumnae chapter. Those presidents can help to give you the guidance and leadership on how they have fundraisers or programs to support I Can Fly High.
Thank you. Another question, and Delegate Smith, you touched upon some of Maryland's legislation, but is there any national legislation being proposed to address issues of menstrual equity in the U.S.?
I am not aware of any national initiatives at this time. As you can probably imagine, much of the policy covering education is largely, it's basically happening at the state and local levels. Particularly when we're talking about, high school and middle school and even elementary school access to these resources. And also a lot of the taxation issues that we're discussing are state taxes. So a lot of the advocacy here is quite frankly at the levels of government that are most accessible to people. And I think in a way, people should be a bit encouraged by that because you could probably make a big difference. There has been a lot of organizing around this issue through a network of states. And that's why you're seeing almost every year a new state repealing the luxury tax, a new state, taking some effort to provide free access to more students. So it's very much at this point a state by state initiative.
Okay, thank you. And another question, and I believe this has been talked about, but what do we see as the top 3 impediments to African girls achieving their full potential?
Was that for me?
I guess anyone on the panel can answer it as they see fit. What do you see as the top 3 impediments to African girls achieving their full potential?
Lisa Maxwell, would you be able to take that one, seeing as though you've been to Ghana, Kenya, and Jamaica?
Okay, yes, so sorry. Let me just read that again. Can you just repeat the question? My apologies.
Of course. What do you see as the top 3 impediments to African girls achieving their full potential?
The top 3 impediments. Well, I really do believe that menstrual inequity is an element that we often don't really think about or talk about. Girls, once they start to get their menses, they are more at risk of sexual violence, which we heard talked about from I Can Fly School. They are more at risk of health challenges and disparities. They are more at risk just overall. So I think that the more we're able to ensure that girls across the diaspora, including Africa and in the United States, are able to have free access to menstrual supplies, it will greatly improve their ability to complete school. And an educated girl ends up being a very successful girl. So that, I think, is a key impediment. And it's why it's so urgent that we deal with this issue of menstrual equity on these 3 fronts: education, wide access to menstrual supplies, as well as changing policies to assure that conversations are normalized and assure that these girls are able to have the infrastructure needed to support their natural, healthy bodies.
I would like to just add one more to that, and that is mental health. In the international forefronts, these girls deal with the problems of childhood marriages and rape, and the list goes on. and they come out of these uncompromising positions. Once they get an opportunity to gain an education at the upper levels, they begin to understand that they are somebody, and there is counseling available for them in these platforms that we service internationally. So in addition to what has been shared by Lisa Maxwell, I just wanted to add that one as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I was reminded of one other element just now, which is poverty, right? So we need to ensure that we are taking care and tending to the fact that many of our girls are facing severe poverty and lack of access to financial resources. So I'll just want to just, also add that to what Carol was saying about mental health. There's also the issue of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. We have a great question from one of our sorors, Joanne Robinson. She said, I'm thinking about education amongst our girls. When I was in elementary school, we had a few lessons about girls growing up, and the first one was to watch Imitation of Life in the auditorium. After watching this, we discussed menstrual cycles, what to do, etc. Do they still do this in school today? Are girls just learning this at home? Is it not in the curriculum for our adult and youth programs? And should it be? That's a great question. And she's basically saying, is this education still going on in schools, and how are we addressing it with our adult and youth programs?
I'm willing to speak up on maybe the broader education, and maybe someone can speak up on the more specific organizational efforts, if that's okay. Okay, great.
Yes.
So I do want to say that there is, health education provided, in public schools, particularly Maryland and in most states, that does cover this information. But I think we all recognize that sometimes one class or one session on this topic is insufficient to address some of the issues of stigma and just some of the health literacy needs of our young people. So I definitely think anything that an organization like Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and others can do to supplement and to reiterate a lot of that health education would have tremendous value, particularly because every family doesn't necessarily have a comfort level around discussing these issues. So there may not be that additional reinforcement of those academic lessons in the home. And that's where community can really meaningfully step up.
I can also comment on this. From my experience, as Stephanie was speaking about, there is a lot of health education implemented in schools, but from my experience, it's been very broad, very non-specific. It's incredibly, this is something you will have to deal with, and you're gonna have to figure out what works best for you. There are pads, tampons, and menstrual cups. Good luck. That's kind of how periods are approached in schools. And I think a very important part that I think should be hopefully implemented in the Delta Youth Program should be educating both boys and girls about menstruation. Too often, and non-binary folk, too often we are making periods a gendered issue. And I think that is adding to the point of the stigma. Girls don't feel comfortable discussing their periods when men or male presenting people are in the room because they are told it is a girl issue or something that should be hidden. And I think the best way to combat that stigma is with education. So yeah.
And I would just like to add from an international standpoint, we focus around our programmatic thrusts as we work these projects with the children in the schools that we support. And that's based on the economic development, educational development, physical and mental health, as well as we talk about these things internationally, and we bridge the gap as to what is going on in America as we bring those opportunities forward. And I must say, they are quite behind on sharing this information with the males. It's still taboo, and we're still just getting to the place where we're able to provide sanitary pads, which are not always available in country. So we have to make sure that we can get them there so that they will have them. And as it has been shared, it's an extremely expensive process in America. So you can only imagine when you start talking about the Rand in South Africa and the cedi in Ghana, it's just the difference in the proportion of the exchange of currency is extremely high. So it's not looked at is a priority purchase. 1 American dollar is $19 to 1 rand. So figure out how can they afford to pay for this, especially in those marginalized and compromised communities. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, we have a question, and I can say that we will address this a little more, but one guest said, "Thank you for this program. For Delegate Smith, is there anything Maryland residents can do to advocate for the supply of free menstruation essentials for students at Maryland colleges, especially HBCUs? I've donated individually to some colleges, and I'm sure if any of them provide those items for free."
Thank you so much for the question. So I may have neglected to mention that I think I mentioned I'm the chair of Education and Economic Development for Appropriations. That covers higher ed funding as well and higher ed policy. And so I know that there are some conversations afoot around food insecurity at college campuses, which we also know is related to the same types of economic stressors that feed into period poverty. And so I'll be frank, I think there needs to be more visible discussions from the Black community in Maryland around this policy issue, because invariably the majority of folks that do advocate on this issue are not Black Marylanders and often are not really adjacent to those who are feeling the stress. It's definitely coming from a place of compassion, but much more of an academic and, kind of at a distance. And so I would be open to being a thought leadership with those who are interested in advocating around that and around legislation needed to make that happen. And I most recently passed a law this year that requires every public college in Maryland to provide 24-hour access to emergency contraception. And that came out of advocacy from a Bowie State grad student. So students themselves can be the impetus to policy change, as well as their alumni and friends. So happy to stay in contact, and I will make sure my personal information is made available to all assembled.
I also just wanted to add, we've been learning a little bit about Representative Grace Meng, who represents the 6th District of New York in the United States Congress. She recently reintroduced the Menstrual Equity for All Act, which aims to dramatically expand free access to menstrual products across the country. I myself need to read a bit more about this, but that also is an area for us to consider how we can further support Representative Grace Meng.
Thank you so much, ladies. Our next question, have you ever considered reusable products? Our organization, PASHI in Philadelphia, makes reusable pads and ships them to different African countries. So far, we have shipped 30 packages to about 14 countries. The package includes pads, panties, and pouches to them, and they're all free, and also trained many students from Africa on how to make them. So the question was, have we ever considered reusable products? No.
I guess that could be some of the questions. In our work, as we've gone to various countries, we have had various partnerships with large companies that are makers of period products, and I'm sure you guys can guess a few of those names. And on the matter of reusable pads and reusable period supplies, yes, there's growing interest among various organizations that we're working with on how can we give access and ensure that there is wide access to reusable products, especially given the strain on the environment with much of the popular products that have lots of plastic, as well as thinking about access to water. And so one of the things that we're finding is that each geography has their own infrastructure challenges and issues that need to be considered as we look at the reusable products that are being introduced. Plus, there are various policies in different countries on what can be used or given to women and girls. So this is a difficult one to answer. The bigger answer is yes, growing interest. We really want to figure out ways to find sustainable solutions to periods. But then the specific solutions, there's still work to be done, and still, research that is ongoing to figure out which ones are best and most appropriate for various regions.
I would like to add, we do not use the reusable products in the projects that we support. We continue to create partnerships with companies such as P&G, that is a large supporter of the feminine care products, which you're familiar with Always, and we're able to get those to country. We don't always recommend that we ship because a lot of times the products are tampered with and it never makes it to the location. So these are some things that you can go back to Baltimore and Southern Africa chapters and work with them and see how they support the projects that we talked about, in addition to supporting what SARS can do to support this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sorrel McLaughlin. And our final question is, how can we get involved and help with the I Can Fly School? Can we sponsor students, and is there a point of contact?
I would say go back to the presidents of the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumnae chapter and Southern Africa Alumnae chapter, and they will be able to work with you on how they can create fundraisers or projects or donations or whatever they decide to do in supporting that kind of work and some of the things that they can do. Thank you.
Okay, great. And this concludes our questions. And next we'll have our final poll question to wrap up.
Thanks so much, Lisa and panelists. Next slide.
All right. What a dynamic panel of women advocates. I'm learning that it's absolutely imperative to normalize the conversation in a non-binary way and really build out infrastructure to disrupt the shame and reduce economic disparities with menstrual care. So thank you to all of you for your powerful work around this issue, and really for sharing your insights and experiences with us, so that we can consider ways that we can also champion menstrual equity within our own spheres of influence. And so now we ask our guests and visitors, all of our participants, to revisit a few poll questions to check in with yourselves and really reflect on some of the information that was shared. So just go ahead and take a minute or two. The poll just popped up, and complete the following poll. And once we're done within a minute or so, we'll reveal the results once again. Okay, so for our second poll results, we're seeing roughly 79 participants who feel strongly that they have a better understanding of period poverty, 74% feeling strongly around understanding menstrual equity. And for this last question around better positioned to know how to advocate for menstrual equity before attending the workshop, it's between 43% and 51% of participants who strongly agree and or agree. So, thank you again for attending and really engaging in this reflection and what your advocacy and potential practice could look like. So over to you, Dr. Gaines.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Taisha. I appreciate it. We're going to now hear about what's next. What can we do? I know everybody is wondering, what can we do? How can we support? How can we make change? I'd like to call on Patsy Wabarocha to the webinar for that answer.
Hello. Wow. Economics, education, and human dignity. It truly takes a village. Sorors of Delta Sigma Theta, family, and friends, we hope that you've gained knowledge and information about menstrual equity and the importance of global health education for our girls. Now, we have a direct way that you can become involved. $2,000 will provide scholarships for 2 girls to attend the I Can Fly High boarding school in Kenya, where education of our girls is a priority, as has been demonstrated. We are asking for your assistance. Please share with your friends and families. Any donation is appreciated. Use the QR code or the link to contribute. There are over 100 of us on this webinar. If each of us gives $10, we can provide education for 1 girl. If we each give $20, we can reach our goal to educate 2 girls. The more we give, the more girls we can educate. Let's change the world. Thank you.
All right, so we still have that QR code on the screen. Take a moment, take a shot of it, look at it, go to the link that's also provided. We need your support. We need to make a change. We'll put that up again at the end of the presentation. Next slide. Now we've just added some resource links. Many people have asked questions about how they can get more information. Well, here the links are currently. You can go to grassrootscommunityfoundation.org or icanflyinternational.org or globalvoices.org to be able to get more information. I'm now going to turn the presentation over for closing remarks to my chapter president, Ms. Cynthia Horton.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your location, to everyone this wonderful day. Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful webinar. Global Menstrual Equity, helping girls stay in school. What is menstrual equity and how can we help? Hopefully, each of you were able to take away a few nuggets from each of our panelists in their discussion. Some main topics are educating ourselves and others, and to include the males. Access to the products needed for these young ladies, and policy changes across the world. Some of the nuggets that I took away are young ladies missing school as early as 3rd grade and missing at least or up to a week of school. This is also including young women who may be in the workforce and have to miss work and not gaining a paycheck because of their menstrual cycle. I would like to thank our regional director of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated of the Eastern Region, Soror Rosie Allen Herring, for taking the time to deliver that message to us and for support of our program. I would like to thank Carol McLaurin for taking time this morning from our National Program Planning and Development Committee and chair of the Subcommittee for International Awareness and Involvement. We certainly appreciate your time and your speaking to us this morning. Additional panelists we would like to thank the Honorable Stephanie M. Smith. We would like to thank Lisa Maxwell and Amina Awike and Mary Depeche. Thank you for your time. I would like to thank my sister Soror President, Sharita Stevens of the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter. I would like to thank the chairs and the co-chairs and committee members of each of the chapters. I would like to thank our members as well who were able to attend, our members from Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter, as well as Southern Africa Alumni Chapter. We know we're in different time zones. Many may be getting up early, maybe staying up late. We certainly appreciate each one of you. We appreciate your time on this Saturday morning, evening, or afternoon. And again, we hope that you are able to take away some special nuggets. We know we have some work to do. We may have taken advantage of some of the things here locally, but knowing that people are suffering in other parts of the world should urge us to be advocates to help others. Again, thank you for this morning. Thank you for the committees. Thank you to our technology team for working on this as well and taking the time to do our presentation. To our Soror ambassador, if I can fly, if you can still hear us, we thank you for your time as well. We apologize for the technology possible breakdown coming from Kenya, but we do appreciate you as well. And we were able to pick up some nuggets of some of the things that you were able to say. Again, thank you everyone, and we appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and be safe.
Jocelyn, you're on mute.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Cynthia, for those wonderful words. And thanks again to everyone who's attended, as well as all the panelists. We appreciate your support of both of our chapters and the work that we do. Please take a moment to take our survey. You see the QR code there, as well as take a snapshot, make your donation right here. We certainly appreciate it. And as Cynthia said, have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.